are going to be looking at some disturbing videos, strange and odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. Oh yes, we do have quite a few news stories to get into today, so where do we begin? Well, I have been saying for quite some time now, I've been making a couple videos on the subject of asteroids and aliens and how they relate. If you go back to those videos, I reference people like Carol Rosen, Werner von Braun, who worked for NASA, and even NASA themselves, because while they do very shady things, they always give us the truth in plain sight, like we see with almost everything else, other forms of entertainment, movies, Hollywood, the music videos, video games, and so forth. But they bring out certain people to also give us the truth in plain sight as well. Referencing those people, how they were saying there was going to be a space race competing against Russia and all these smaller countries having weapons in space, and then next they were saying asteroids would be the next biggest enemy, and then the final card would be this fake stage alien invasion. Whether you believe this or not, I strongly believe we are seeing this play out in real time, and I theorize, and it's only a theory, that they are going to blame all these plane crashes, all these aviation incidents on UFOs. Yesterday, news came out that there was another plane crash. Two planes had collided into each other at an airport in Arizona. Now, this airport does not have a tower, but you hardly hear of any crashes at this particular airport. But at the same time, news has come out that a airport in Turkey had to shut down due to a UFO sighting, a possible UFO sighting. Now, they don't know if it's Starlink or a drone or something else altogether, but due to this sighting, they had to halt all flights from this airport in Turkey. I'll go ahead and link the news article below in the comment section, but this individual on TikTok, Hallucination Hippies, he does an amazing breakdown about this incident in Istanbul.
Afternoon all, happy Wednesday. More UAP sightings, and one in particular coming from Turkey which caused major disruption, closing Gaziantep airport on Monday. I found this article which you will find in the comments below. Turkey's Gaziantep airport suspended all flights following reports that a glowing, radar invisible, unidentified flying object was spotted in the sky, local media reported on Tuesday. Pilots at Gaziantep airport saw a glowing unidentified object at an altitude of about 10,000 feet and reported the situation to the control tower after two pilots reported an object that was not visible on radar. Flights landing and takeoff of aircraft at the airport were stopped, local online newspaper T24 wrote. Flight activities at the airport are expected to resume once the object, which is suspected to be a drone, has been properly identified. Here is a news clip from Turkey with the aircraft pilot speaking and also footage taken by a civilian at the same time. Take a look and I'll be back shortly.
Rapor edilmesi üzerine uçuşlar geçici süreyle durduruldu. Gaziantep Havalimanı'ndaki cismi iki pilot fark etti. Radarlarda görünmeyen cisimle ilgili Hava Trafik Kontrol Kulesi'nde raporda bulundular. Bunun üzerine havalimanında önlemler arttırıldı. Uçuşlar geçici süreyle durduruldu. Tanımlanamayan cismin drone olduğu tahmin ediliyor. İncelemeler sürüyor.
Tekrardan anlayışını sağladığınız için teşekkür ederim. Havadaki cismin ne olduğunu tespit edemedi. Dolayısıyla beklemekten başka çaremiz yok. Yeni bir bilgi aldığımda sizlere bilgi vereceğim. Tekrardan
Let me know your thoughts on the Turkey incidents, guys. You know, that's really interesting. The only thing for me is how straight away the news article labels it a drone. It clearly doesn't look like a drone to me. Does it you? Let me know your thoughts on that one. I've got some more footage now. This is coming from Derby again. That's where I live. As you know, I posted footage last week from Zoe Rose. I had my own incident the week before. This footage comes from my business partner and the person that I adore with all my heart. Take a look at this. Let me know your thoughts. It's definitely not a plane. She sent it me last night when I was on the phone to her. And yeah, take a look. Let me know your thoughts. I'll be back later going live. Grant will be co-hosting with me as normal, and we'll look forward to seeing you then.
Now, if you go back to either late December of 2024 or the beginning of 2025, we were getting a lot of news stories of unidentified drones. And yes, he is correct. News and media, they are quick to call them drones. But we were getting a lot of news stories how unidentified drones were flying over restricted airspace. Not only were we getting news about how there were unidentified drones flying over major airports, public airports, for example, like the one in Manchester, but we were also getting a lot of news how there were unidentified drones flying over Air Force bases. They were flying over so many restricted airspace, these quote-unquote unidentified drones, that we all pretty much had the same question. Why isn't the government shooting them down and identifying them? Well, they came back and said they can't, because there's a law that they can't shoot them down because they're not doing anything wrong. They're not showing any violent action. But the thing is, they're already breaking the law by flying over restricted airspace. Let us be honest, it's not like the government hasn't done what they wanted to anyway, regardless of the law. But it made us feel like that they couldn't bring them down, like these drones, or these quote-unquote drones, were something else altogether, some very advanced technology. After all this news of drones and orbs, well, what are we seeing? We are hearing and seeing a lot of news about all these plane crashes, and not just these small private planes that always seem to crash, but commercial airliners. Commercial airliners having a lot of issues, and also, yes, they're crashing. And on top of this, military air travel is also having issues. F-35s just crashing out of the sky and so forth. Don't you find it very suspicious that all of the commercial airliners, the major planes and some of the smaller planes, but all of the commercial airliners crashed at the airport? The 4 planes that crashed back to back in December all happened at the airport, especially the South Korean plane that smashed right into the wall. And then we had this Black Hawk crashing into the American Airlines plane happen at the airport as it was landing. And then more recently, the Canadian plane that crashed on its back, well, it was a Delta plane, the United States plane, but it happened in Toronto. It crashed on its back. They're all happening at the airports, and we were getting all this news coming out about these quote-unquote unidentified drones flying over airports and airspaces. Beauty Merc on TikTok has a very similar theory as I do when it comes to these plane crashes. It also all falls into fear, a psychological campaign to stop us from flying. But he also sees it as, again, UFOs are involved. But when it comes to me, I believe it's not the UFOs they want us to believe, like entities from another planet and so forth. No, it's all from within.
Have you noticed how just this year we've started noticing plane crashes much more than we ever have before? Primarily being because of how much attention that the media is placing on them, which one can only wonder why the media is doing that in the first place. And I have a theory. Because do keep in mind, okay, we're basically currently experiencing less airplane accidents than ever before in history. It makes no sense for the media to be reporting on these crashes so often when in actuality, these crashes happen more than you think. And they have for years, people. You need to wake up and stop becoming victims of psychological warfare. And think about how it's affecting people, right? People are literally afraid to fly. And I've been wondering what the goal of creating that fear would accomplish, and then it hit me. People are no longer talking about what's been happening in the skies aside from these plane crashes. I tried to bring awareness to something specific that was happening in the Gulf of Mexico, but of course they suppressed that video. Now that is in the Gulf of Mexico, but this is happening literally all over the country. I think that there's a war going on in the skies that nobody is paying attention to right now. And I have hundreds of videos showing these objects. They're literally as bright as stars and sometimes above our atmosphere, sometimes above an altitude of which airplanes fly. But they're not a satellite, they don't blink, and they move in any direction almost at an instant. And they move much faster than a fighter jet or any known aircraft. I know because I've literally witnessed fighter jets try to chase them over the Gulf of Mexico and fail to do so. These sightings are happening everywhere, all over the country right now, but no media source is talking about it. But yet when these mysterious, in quotations, drones were flying around, the media's attention was on them almost instantly, all the time. And now they just miraculously disappeared, which we also didn't even get an answer behind their origins to begin with. People need to start looking up more often and catching these things on video. Have you noticed how just this year we've started noticing?
Technically, he is right. There are a lot less aviation incidents in 2025 as opposed to the beginning of 2024 and 2023. The only thing is that we have not had a major commercial airliner crash in the United States since 2009. And that's in reference to the commercial airliner crash that happened in Washington, D.C. So it seems like there is an uptick of issues with commercial airliners, the bigger planes. But when it comes to these smaller aircraft, the private aircraft, there were a lot of crashes in 2024 and 2023. And for whatever reason, news and media, they are making a very big deal about these smaller aircraft to make it seem like planes are crashing more and more when that's not the truth. Getting people scared to fly, it's all playing into that psychological campaign. But I still do believe, and as he noticed as well with all the orbs and drones, I still do believe that orbs and drones are going to play a role into this when it comes to later news. You don't believe me, that's fine, but look at the news story that News Nation is running with today, and I wasn't even aware of this as I was making this video. I had to come back and re-edit this video, But they have an article out where a military pilot's reported encounter with a UFO, and it's titled "This is Going to Sound Weird," and it's all about how this military pilot had encountered a UFO. We're going to see more and more of these news articles, not just from News Nation, but other news agencies, until, like I said, they eventually blame UFOs, UAPs, quote-unquote unidentified drones and orbs on these plane crashes. If you go back to my previous video of the Toronto plane crash, which I can't show here because last time I did so, I was put into a limited category, somebody pointed out that you can actually see something black flying in the sky, which looks pretty similar to these black things that I have been talking about. Now, I don't know if it's some kind of artifact in that person's camera, and it's very possible, but you can definitely see something. But at the end of the day, whether that's an artifact, a glitch on the camera, or something else altogether, I still feel like this is leading to something much bigger. They, and when I say they, I'm talking about the so-called powers that be, those who are ushering in this one world government, this 2030 agenda. I theorize that they're going to say that UFOs, aliens, they are jamming signals, they are interfering with airspace and so forth, causing planes to crash, causing planes to collide into each other, and it's going to become more frequent. They are going to blame it on drones, and then the drones are going to turn right back into UAPs. I theorize that's how it's going to play out. When it comes to the Toronto plane crash, there are some of us, not a lot of us, but some of us, we feel like there is something off about that crash. And yes, in the first place, it's a crash, but just something they're not telling us. How it crashed, the video footage that has come out, certain things that were said inside of that video footage that I can't get into on this channel, because when you call certain things, if you know what I mean, you often find yourself getting banned. So that conversation is saved for my Humble page. But news has come out that Delta has offered these passengers $30,000. I'm surprised it wasn't $33,000, but they have offered them $30,000, no strings attached, but they have to sign an agreement with thousands of words.
Thanks for joining us. Today, only one person injured in Monday's Delta plane crash remains hospitalized.
Within the last hour or two, some breaking news. We learned Delta is now offering $30,000 to survivors of that crash. Delta says the money comes with no strings attached. However, some passengers tell us their gratitude is mixed with frustration. Adam Duxter has been following this story and talking with passengers today. Adam, what have you learned?
Oh, Frank, you can only imagine the week that these folks have been through, but now a new twist. I've had a chance to look at the offer sent to every passenger on board that flight, a one-time $30,000 gift that Delta says comes no strings attached and doesn't impact passenger rights. In that offer is written that passengers must accept the agreement by March 6th. The fine print says it's a message provided on a confidential basis, and that by accepting the email, they are then prompted to a terms and conditions agreement, thousands of words in length. Schwabel Getz and Sieben, a personal injury firm based in Minneapolis, says they've already been contacted by a number of passengers that were on that flight about potential representation even before these payments came forward. And they say passengers aboard this flight certainly have the right to compensation.
Airlines like Delta or others have a heightened duty of care. They're a common carrier under our law, which means they have a heightened duty beyond just what the normal person has. Our law allows for these individuals to be compensated for the emotional trauma that they went through, both the experience of living this, but the aftermath.
And prior to this payout announcement today, we'd heard from passengers frustrated by what they say up until that point was a lack of communication from Delta. It's clear prior to this, there had been no communication about potential payout. In a statement, Delta says today that they're also assisting customers with hotels, meals, and transportation, as well as other personal needs, and that they'll start reuniting people with their belongings as soon as they're able to. That sorting and cleaning everything that was left on board that plane could.
So again, no strings attached, but you have to sign all this stuff, and it's confidential. So I'm sure these people are waiving their right to sue and waiving their right to say a lot of things. To a lot of people, $30,000 is a lot of money. You can pay off a lot of debt. But to me, going through that ordeal, you're going to have to add a couple zeros to that $30,000. I mean, that is a situation that nobody wants to be in. Now, I know some people out there will say it's always about the money. Everybody just wants to sue. But sometimes the only way these organizations, these companies will listen and start making changes is if you hit them in the pockets. But I am very, very interested to see what that fine print says that these passengers have to sign in order to get this $30,000. That, again, there's no strings attached. But talking about asteroids and aliens, again, all this talks about aliens, and now we're all talking about asteroids just like they told us we would. But news has come out yesterday that the chances of asteroid 2024 YR4 hitting the Earth has increased by, I believe, another percentage. Now they are releasing articles immediately after they said the chance has increased, getting people worried. Now they are saying, hours later, they are saying the chance has decreased. So I guess they're playing those mind games. But I do find it interesting that they are also releasing articles how this asteroid has a trajectory where more than 100 million people live. Reading this article, it says the trajectory takes it over 8 of the top 100 most populated cities in the world. The urban area of these cities alone have a combined population of more than 110 million, with the destructive potential of asteroid 2024 YR4 equivalent to 8 million tons of TNT, roughly 500 times the power of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. We are also getting news articles how Earth can defend itself against the city killer asteroid, 3 asteroid watchers for China's Planetary Defense Force. So again, asteroids have now become the enemy, just like they said they would. And it's just interesting how this asteroid happens to be targeting the location with one of the highest populations on Earth. We're going to continue hearing news how the chances of it hitting Earth has increased, then it decreased again, then it increased. It's just a sick mind game leading up to this false flag. Outside of UFOs and aliens, in this next segment, I made a video a couple days ago about these news reports coming out how all these states were flooding. States like Virginia, West Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, especially Kentucky. There was this individual on TikTok who saw on this flight tracker this very suspicious plane doing all these circles, and then immediately after, it began to flood. While all these states were dealing with a horrific flood to the point that people were losing their lives, Los Angeles just happened to be dealing with a horrific flood at around the same time. And while Los Angeles was dealing with a horrific flood, just out of nowhere, a water main had broken in Detroit. Supposedly, anyway. But there was such a horrific flood in Detroit that cars are actually frozen at the same time. It was very cold, causing the water to freeze, and now people, they cannot access their vehicles until the ice melts. This is what I believe it currently looks like in Detroit.
You guys, all our basement is flooded. We've been calling since 1 a.m. for help and nobody has came to help us. We're just trying to leave the house, to be honest.
So yeah, while all these other states are dealing with floods, Detroit just happens to be dealing with one of the worst water main breaks in history, and on top of that, the water has now frozen. But it has gotten a lot worse because many people, many homes have been impacted.
A water main break caused this surreal scene of cars trapped in ice in southwest Detroit. And now nearly 300 people may have to spend weeks in hotels as the city cleans up their neighborhood. A massive 100-year-old steel pipe ruptured around 2 a.m. on Monday, when temperatures were already well below freezing. We're talking 21 degrees. More than 250 homes were either flooded or lost power, and residents had to be rescued by boats. City officials called it one of the worst water main breaks in recent history. A water main break caused this.
So yeah, it is really bad currently in Detroit with this water main breaking on top of freezing temperatures. People can't access their cars and they can't access their homes. A lot of people. And it really makes you wonder, does Detroit have anything interesting going on like Los Angeles? We know that Los Angeles has the 2028 Smart City. Kentucky, Arkansas, and those other states have a lot of resources, including lithium. But does Detroit have anything going on? Well, looking into it further, Detroit is working towards becoming a smart city through projects that use data and technology to improve transportation, safety, and infrastructure. But isn't it quite astonishing, all these locations that are either becoming smart cities or have something valuable inside of them, but at the end of the day, all of these locations are going to end up smart cities thanks to these long-range transportation plans, these contracts. But it's quite astonishing that we see these locations have something historic going on, whether it's historic floods, and so forth, that cause a lot of damage, and we find out that they are on the chopping block to become smart cities. Can't make it up. Can't make it up even if you wanted to. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, please subscribe. If you're already subscribed, please like, as any engagement does help the channel grow. Once again, thank you so much for your support.